5 years ago, Takeoff was nominated for 2 Grammys. Now the rapper is dead, and KHOU 11 Investigates has uncovered new information about the night he was murdered. It happened here in downtown Houston on Halloween night outside 810 Billiards and Bowling. According to search warrants, the venue had trouble controlling the crowd, and investigators say there were at least 2 shooters.
A private party in the heart of Houston with a very exclusive crowd. On public Instagram videos cited in search warrants, you can see Migos rappers TakeOff and KHOU that night and a gun in the front seat. The party was thrown by Jay Prince downtown at 810 Billiards and Bowling.
All I heard was gunshots and people screaming.
And it ended in murder.
Fans across the country, we feel robbed, we feel hurt, we feel confused, and we want somebody to find out who did this.
What happened that night ended up all over social media.
Any face you see.
Including a dice game. Video of it was later played on a YouTube channel hosted by DJ Academics. According to search warrants, witnesses told police the dice game involved a lot of money, in excess of $100,000. And they include a timeline. At 1 a.m., the staff told police they tried closing, but had difficulty getting everyone outside. By 2 a.m., a large group had gathered near the front doors. And at 2:34, Takeoff was shot twice, once in the head and once in the back.
What time did you get to the bowling alley?
It was after hours, so I got there around maybe 12 or maybe 1 o'clock.
Sydney LeDay was one of the other 2 people shot. It was Halloween night. She took this picture before the shooting.
I felt the sting in the back of my head. I felt myself falling, and the person I was with picked me up.
The challenging thing about the crime scene, it happened on the 3rd floor. When the shooting happened, people started running in every direction. And after Sydney LeDay was shot, she told us she had to get herself to the 1st floor where a friend was parked who could take her to the hospital.
In the chaos, no one understood why Takeoff was killed.
Definitely wrong place at the wrong time.
Houston police say he was not involved in the dice game or the argument outside that led to the shooting. According to search warrants, there were 34 people outside in the crowd. 10 shell casings were found, and investigators identified 2 shooters. Patrick Clark, also known as DJ Pat, who was a known associate of Jay Prince, was arrested for Takeoff's murder. The other shooter didn't hit anyone, and it is unclear who shot Sydney LeDay.
I really just can say I'm just grateful to be here.
It was hard for Sydney LeDay to sit down and talk about the shooting. We waited for months until she was ready to tell her story. In her first interview, she sat down to talk with KHOU 11 News about her recovery that's far from over.
I really just can say I'm just grateful to be here. And
Sydney LeDay is a survivor.
Do you remember the moment you first woke up in the hospital?
I didn't want to be there. I kept telling my mom I want to go home. I had never been in a hospital like that.
The night rapper Takeoff was shot and killed outside a bowling alley in downtown Houston, she was shot too, in the head, after what Houston police called a private party that started on Halloween. It was just 2 days after LeDay's 24th birthday.
I remembered what happened because when I was up the whole time after I got shot in the head, and I called my mom and told her what happened and to come.
LeDay says somehow she made it down an escalator and to a friend's car who took her to the hospital. She was in a coma and intubated before she woke up.
I felt the sting in the back of my head. I felt myself falling, and the person I was with picked me up, and we got in the car, but it was like a scary movie, really. Ironically, it was Halloween night. I had on a nun outfit. I had blood all over me.
At any point, do you remember being scared before all that happened, or was it, in your opinion, a normal night?
There wasn't any arguments or anything until the event was actually over. And yeah, that's when I knew something was wrong, because I thought these people that were arguing was just playing from, like I said, the energy that was in the room before. Everybody was around the table playing a game of dice. So I thought it was just like, you know, some friendly banter.
But that banter turned into a shooting, sending the crowd running. And that's when LeDay says she was shot. After a week in the hospital, she was finally released.
What was it like when you went home?
That's when the real stuff started. Like, I had a panic attack as soon as I got home.
Born and raised in Houston, the community's rallying around her recovery, raising money on a GoFundMe page to help pay for her medical bills. LeDay knows her recovery will take time, physically and emotionally, but is thankful she survived.
I was just grateful that I did, because the place that it hit in my head, I just feel like it was a miracle.
Sydney LeDay had a lot more to say. She's born and raised in Houston and told us she's been leaning on her family for support. Here's her extended interview about the night she was shot and TakeOff was killed at a private party in downtown Houston.
Sydney, first, tell us how you're doing.
Every day is different. I'm going through different emotions. I haven't saw a therapist or anything, so most days I'm happy. Most days, I could just, to sum it up, it's a mix of emotions. So I have random times where I feel angry. A lot of, I wouldn't say sadness. It's, I have feelings of being grateful that I am still here.
You've made a miraculous recovery. Tell us what you've been through.
I really just can say I'm just grateful to be here, and it's just like sometimes unreal.
Do you remember the moment you first woke up in the hospital?
Everybody was around me. Well, when I first woke up, like I said, I didn't want to be there. I kept telling my mom I want to go home. I had never been in a hospital like that, but I remembered what happened, because when I was up the whole time after I got shot in the head, and I called my mom and told her what happened and to come.
You called your mom after you were shot?
Yeah. And I told her to come to the hospital, but I ended up having a seizure. So I was on the phone with her the whole time. And
so you knew exactly what had happened and why you were in the hospital?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but everybody was around me. My mom, my aunts, my grandma.
I know you said you knew why you were in the hospital, but did you understand the extent of your injuries and what you had survived?
Yes, I did. I was up for the whole thing. I felt the sting in the back of my head. I felt myself falling, and the person I was with picked me up, and we got in the car. But it was like a scary movie, really. Ironically, it was Halloween night. I had on a nun outfit. I had blood all over me. And
you had dressed up for Halloween.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it was still my birthday weekend, so.
You had just turned 24.
Yeah. So, like any other 24-year-old, I was just out partying and celebrating, because I really never dressed up for Halloween, and that was something I was excited about.
Did you know the people there that night? Did you know TakeOff was there?
Yeah, I saw everybody. I'm used to being around celebrities, so it wasn't, because I used to live in Los Angeles, so it wasn't like a big deal. It was just more so like just a regular party.
And had you been there the whole night, or what time did you get to the bowling alley?
It was after hours, so I got there around maybe 12 or maybe 1 o'clock, because we had been to a few places. Like I said, we were celebrating my birthday still, and it was Halloween. And I told the person I was with I wanted to hang out tonight, because I have my costume and I looked cute. So Yeah, so we got there at like 12 a.m. and everybody was just hanging out. We had a few drinks.
At any point, do you remember being scared before all that happened, or was it, in your opinion, a normal night?
Yeah, it was pretty normal in my opinion. Yeah, I didn't get scared. It wasn't any arguments or anything until the event was actually over. And yeah, that's when I knew something was wrong after the fact, because I thought these people that were arguing was just playing from, like I said, the energy that was in the room before. Everybody was around the table playing a game of dice. So I thought it was just like, you know, some friendly banter.
But that argument or that arguing was kind of your first sign that something was going on.
Yeah, because KHOU, he was upset. So I noticed that something was wrong whenever I noticed that he was really upset and he was finna leave. So the party wasn't finna keep going on. And I saw whenever everything broke out and I tried to run, but I didn't go that far. So yeah, it was really like a movie, like shooting all the way until I got down the escalator into the car, and I'm just telling the person I'm with, like, I'm scared, like, and I knew something happened to me from falling and feeling that stinging sensation.
Mm-hmm. So you were actually running away when you were shot, is that fair to say?
Yes. Yeah, so that's when I got in the car and called my mom, and luckily we were only 12 minutes away from Memorial Hermann.
Wow, so you made it down the escalator into the friend's car. That friend took you to the hospital, rushed you there. And you said you spent how long in the hospital total?
A week.
What was it like when you went home?
That's when the real stuff started. Like, I had a panic attack as soon as I got home.
Do you replay that night in your head and what happened?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I had a panic attack. And I just remember I didn't really have an appetite. All I really ate was like fruit and just different stuff. I was nauseated, throwing up all the time. Like, yeah, that was just, I feel like that part was even worse than the actual being shot in the head, because I'm actually feeling all those feelings.
Have you read a lot of the articles that have been published about that night?
Yeah. I'm a pretty curious person, so yeah, I wanted to know, because I was having memory problems and I couldn't really write like my name and stuff like that, even to get discharged or, you know, sign certain things in the hospital. So I was having certain problems at first.
Did you realize other people were shot as well?
No. I mean, of course, being in it, you ain't trying to get away from it. You're not, I don't mean to sound heartless, but you're not worried about other people. I was worried about one of my other friends, because I know she was right there by me, and I was worried about her because they told me she was at the hospital, so I actually saw her or something like that. See, that's what I'm saying. Like, I had to keep asking, like, you know, to like refresh me on certain things. But yeah, she ended up being okay.
That you didn't realize TakeOff was killed until
After
you
the
got
fact.
home. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was that like to realize that other people were shot that night?
I mean, I actually was going through it. I was sad that it ended up like that, but I mean, we were all in the same situation. Unfortunately, somebody else didn't survive, and I was just grateful that I did, because the place that it hit in my head, I just feel like it was a miracle.
It's a call no parent wants to hear. But when this mother's phone rang in the middle of the night, she knew something was wrong. It wasn't first responders calling her. It was her daughter, Sydney LeDay. She told her mom she had been shot. Sydney was at the same private party in downtown Houston where rapper TakeOff was killed. Her mom, trying to process the news, rushed to the hospital to be by her daughter's side. What has this been like as a mom to watch your daughter go through this?
Oh, as a mom, it's from the beginning, it's been like she said, it's unreal. It's like Halloween weekend just haven't stopped.
Sakar Lowry remembers the moment she got the call.
Just to hear the words from your child, Mom, I've been shot in my head. You know, like, you're like, what? Like, what are you saying?
On the phone was her daughter, Sydney LeDay. She was at the same private party in downtown Houston where rapper TakeOff was shot and killed.
So you went straight to the hospital. What happened when you got there?
We stood outside in the cold and rain under the carport with the police because we couldn't go in for like 7 hours.
That must have been torture.
It was. The police were trying to be as helpful as they could, but they didn't know, her situation because they were out there with me, and they had to secure the hospital so that if it was a threat to her, not knowing who the shooters were, not knowing if they were followed to the hospital.
She says her daughter was listed at the hospital under an alias for security.
So 7 hours later, you get to your daughter. What did you see?
Basically, the picture that I posted on her GoFundMe is what I saw. She had a tube. To me, she looked like she was dead. Me being a mom. Just something I'll never forget.
Just 2 days before, her mom and her pictured here, celebrating her 24th birthday. She was out celebrating too, the night it all happened, and dressed up for Halloween. This picture taken before the shooting.
The place that it hit in my head, I just feel like it was a miracle.
Where did it hit? Can you point to it for us? In the back?
Yeah, I have a big bald spot right there.
This is not all about celebrity. This is about human beings.
Waverly Nolly is an attorney representing the family.
A private party such as this is something that doesn't occur all the time. Therefore, you should employ more measures than normal because this is not a normal crowd.
Do you want someone to be held accountable for what happened that night to your daughter?
I do, because she didn't ask for that. If you just, I know you can't, you can go to Walmart and something can happen. But if you're out, you're just having a good time, you're in an establishment, I feel like you should be safe enough to go home.
LeDay is home, but life looks a lot different. After a week in the hospital and having her head stitched back together, she's still healing.
There's no planning for any of it. It's no planning with her having nightmares. She was constantly nauseated. She couldn't eat. The anxiety, the constant emotions, just out of nowhere, she's crying.
LeDay has always had big dreams. She's from Houston, but got her Associates of Art degree from the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising in Los Angeles. She started her own jewelry business during the pandemic and says she's always had a knack for being creative.
I do know things happen for a reason. So I still have hope for her future.
A future her mom says her daughter deserves, even more now.
And I just know God is so good because he didn't have to keep her here, but he did. So we have to live our life a different way, just being grateful.
Sydney LeDay's mom talked a lot more about her daughter's recovery and what those early moments were like in the hospital after the shooting. Here's her extended interview about the impact the shooting has had on her family. What has this been like as a mom to watch your daughter go through this?
Oh, as a mom, it's from the beginning, it's been like she said, it's unreal. It's like Halloween weekend just haven't stopped. You know, as a mom, you want to make sure your child is okay, of course. So moms, we know how to hold things in and keep pushing and make sure everything's okay, and we kind of will set ourselves to the side, you know, just to make sure our children are good. But it's been a nightmare, you know. As a mom, you're watching your child sick, like she said, coming home from the hospital. Well, from the initial phone call, I felt like my whole inside was on the floor. You know, my husband had to pick me up. We had to keep pushing to even get to her, you know, and just to hear the words from your child, "Mom, I've been shot in my head." You know, like, you're like, what? Like, what are you saying? And then she's telling me that, so.
And where were you when you got that phone call?
What the funny thing, whenever she's not home and she goes out, I'm constantly up, I'm walking around. And that particular night, I just sat down on the side of the bed. And when the phone rang, I just knew it was something. So, you know, I had to call my mom, call my sisters, tell my husband, you know, not that she's been shot in the head, but we gotta go now. So it's hard.
So you went straight to the hospital. What happened when you got there?
We stood outside in the cold and rain under the carport with the police because we couldn't go in for like 7 hours.
That must have been torture.
It was. You know, to hear her say that and then you don't know.
Did they tell you, or I guess she told you, you knew that she had been shot?
Mm-hmm. But as to know, like, is she okay? Like, seven hours is a long time. And the police were trying to be as helpful as they could, but they didn't know, you know, her situation because they were out there with me, and they had to secure the hospital so that if it was a threat to her, you know, not knowing who the shooters were, not knowing if they were followed to the hospital.
Like, they were worried about her safety, even in the hospital.
Yes, she was under an alias. And I suggested that they keep it that way because we didn't know anything. Looking at social media with this guy, the way they were showing him, and then knowing that she's in the hospital, like, that was torture by itself.
So 7 hours later, you get to your daughter.
Mm-hmm.
What did you see?
Basically, the picture that I posted on her GoFundMe is what I saw. She had a tube. To me, she looked like she was dead. Me being a mom. Just something I'll never forget.
How long was it before she woke up that first time?
Probably the next day, I think. She woke up and, like she said, she wanted to leave. So they had to keep her sedated. And just seeing her, you know, her hands are in mittens, the tube, you know, just the whole look of everything. And
yeah, even my friends when they see the picture, they just, and like, you need a warning sign.
Yeah, but you know, my family, I didn't share a lot of things with my family because it was so much going on. And once I did post the GoFundMe, it was like everything started over.
People
I had
wanted to know how she was doing. What happened?
First, a lot of calls and yeah, it did. Like it was coming back all over again, which we knew was gonna happen, but it's just like you having those emotions all over again.
There's no planning for any of it. There's no planning with her having nightmares. She was constantly nauseated. She couldn't eat. The anxiety, the constant emotions, just out of nowhere, she's crying, you know. We're just trying to take care of her. And so we had to deal with all of that. And we're still dealing with it. For a while, she was afraid. She didn't know, you know, she just didn't know. You know, even as a mother, I'm sheltering her from the TV. I'm sheltering her, I'm keeping her phone so she's not on social media. She's not seeing the pictures from that night. You know, she's not reading all these comments. It's just a lot. You know, I'm covering up for my 7-year-old. You know, she wants to know, where's Sissy? So I'm telling her, you know, she knew she was in the hospital, but I'm telling her, oh, Sissy has a headache, but she'll be fine. She knew something was going on, but she's only 7.
What do you want to say to people who are following the case, heard about Sydney's story, who have wanted to help in some way and wanted to know how she's doing?
I just want to say it's a long road to recovery. It's a day-to-day process, you know. It's not easy. We're so appreciative for all the love and support from strangers, you know. You just never know. You never know where help can come from. You never know that strangers, you know, people hear all this bad stuff every day, but it is a good side, you know. People that they don't know her, but I'm sorry.
Don't apologize.
Just people don't know her, and they don't know us as a family, but to see the support and the love from people. So sometimes I have to look and think. It's a lot that I haven't even saw from my own family. People that know her, but to see people give that don't know her, that means so much. And I can't say thank you enough. Like she said, we're grateful. So grateful. And I just know God is so good because he didn't have to keep her here, but he did. So we have to live our life a different way, just being grateful.
As a mom, do you want someone to be held accountable for what happened that night to your daughter?
I do, because she didn't ask for that. You know, if you just, I know you can't, you can go to Walmart and something can happen. But if you're out, you're just having a good time, you're in an establishment, I feel like you should be safe enough to go home. You know, you shouldn't have to worry about being shot. So if they find someone, then that's great. If they have the person that they think is accountable, that's great.
The investigation into TakeOff's murder is still ongoing, and there's a lot more to learn about what happened that night. The Houston Police Department is the lead, and it's a case we will keep following.